It only takes them 2 years to go broke. 2 years. That's it. No more money, no more fame. No one in the world wants to talk to you after this.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in. All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. I'm so glad you're here with us today again. I do have an amazing guest, one that I've not had on the show before. I'm really looking forward and excited to this opportunity to talk to Igor Shaltanov. Igor, welcome to the show.
Jeremy, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to share whatever I know.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to chopping it up with you. Igor is the founding and managing partner of Avista Fund. He's a former professional athlete who transitioned into successful entrepreneurship and real estate investing. Igor and his team currently serves as limited partners in 20 different real estate deals, 3,200 multifamily units with a cumulative value of over $500 million in real estate. This is Igor and his team, they specifically prioritize conservative underwriting and meticulous due diligence, ensuring a prudent approach to investing while delivering value to both investors and residents. Igor,
Yes.
You have an amazing track record. You've been in this business a while. Would love to just learn a little bit more about, kind of your background, your journey, from being a professional sports athlete to now, professional real estate investor, and maybe you can kind of just get us caught up to today.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Thank you very much, Jeremy. I'll probably take the people to the Russia, right? I like the gloom and dark side of it, right? And just imagine probably 1999, 2000s, right? It's still developing. Where we just got through the civil, I would say, rest, right? And maybe I would say revolution, well, like internal civil revolution. And we're thinking through democracy, but then there's nothing available online. Like literally you go online, there's no YouTube, right? There's no channels, there's no courses. And today people bombard you with all kind of different things. Here's learn real estate, stock market, Bitcoin, right? And back then you're on your own, right? And I'm standing in front of my house. I mean, it's an apartment complex. We live in an apartment, like small apartment, for 20 years maybe or so. And then I'm standing there, and then the guy next to me saying, you know what, I'm probably maybe about 14 years old. And you know what, I'm going to go pick up money from the guys. I was like, oh, tell me more. So what is that? Pick up money from people. I was like, oh my goodness, how's that working? Tell me. And then he said, oh, we got spare apartment. So we rented to people. So, and they paying every month. I was like, excellent. That's a brilliant idea. Too much for me. So I'm not thinking about that. I don't have a spare apartment. What's a real estate? What is that real estate? I have no idea right back then. Anyways, but it struck my mind. That was the first time ever I thought about the real estate. So anyways, back to my story. So I played professional water polo, right? There's no league except Europe and Russia where you can make money on the water polo. And then the idea of mine was always, how can I set the money aside so I don't blow it? It's not about how I can make a double-digit return and blah, blah, blah. It's just setting the money aside, not to blow it. That's it. Not to buy shiny things, not to go to like another vacation, which is you probably don't need and stuff like that. So, and then that was my first idea. Illiquidity game was the game of real estate. It's not, I would call it emotionally liquid. Like you can't just click on sell and then just spend that money. And again, I'm talking about my personal experience because it's a hard, real estate asset. You need to hire the agent, go on the market, do this. And by the time you do, you're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should sell. Maybe I shouldn't spend these things and stuff like that. That was working so well for me. And then from now on, I was like, okay, let me multiply this thing. So because first time ever, Actually, my mom was working as she's, how do you call it? Like a doctor, right, for government. One of the way they pay people, you get an apartment. So, and the first real estate was like that. So she got a spare apartment, not the apartment where we live, the spare one. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I remember that story. And I'm already making money, like probably like more times than my mom and my dad together. But then she was like, okay, we got this place. I don't know what to do. We're probably gonna have it, blah blah blah. So there's no plan. There's no execution on that. I was like, I remember when I was 14, somebody told me, right, you can exchange it to money. So what I did, I said, listen, and this was a brand new building, so I'm talking about the new place. And then I said, Mom and Dad, you deserve to move to the brand new place, which is I'm gonna remodel, we're gonna fix it, it's gonna be nice. You're gonna, my idea was you're gonna elevate your quality of life, right? So, and then they were, no, we like our old place. It's a beautiful park next to that. We got neighbors here and there. It took me like 6 months to convince them, and then I just really fixed that place. So I moved them to the new place, and then they excited. They'd say thank you maybe after a couple of years. They understood that, and then so finally we just remodeled that old place, and I put two people as a renters inside. Two young professionals who's like working as a lawyers, and they split that monthly payment on two. Now I understand how powerful is that. Back then I was like, okay, it's young guys, they probably gonna trust the whole thing. So there's a lot of different like doubts and fears and all that stuff. But the good thing, so it was so easy for them to pay monthly rent. They were always on time, never cooking in the kitchen because the younger guys eating out, right? Just to sleeping. They were disciplined as well. That was probably the best people I ever like had it as an attendant, right? And again, speaking of the experience, that was my first experience because the size of the pay, and again, there's no leverage, right? It's all paid off. Like it's a zero leverage. It's all yours. Whatever the rent comes in, just imagine you got like $2 million house, the rent come in, it's just all yours. No taxes, nothing. Like zero, right? Zero expenses, almost nothing. So, anyways, and then when the first check came in, I mean not check, it's all cash. When the cash came in, the stack of cash, and I showed it to my mom. And the thing was the chunk of cash was equals to her monthly pay. It's like in her mind, she was like, "Oh my god!" So I started to transform her mind right away. She was like, "Okay, I don't do nothing, like zero work, and I got the same stack of cash as I work in like every single day." So that was another transformation. So the passive income is, again, it's not truly passive. You understand that it's a real estate. You got to manage the things. But again, so that was the first. I'm going to stop here, Jeremy.
Igor, you're a little bit cut from the same cloth as me. I tend to find myself talking a lot and feel like I'm going to burn out my microphone half the time. So I can resonate with you there. But, I'd really like to dial in specifically more on kind of the, professional side, of your background being a professional sports. And I believe that your wife also came from the professional sports, arena as well. And so because of that, I'm sure that you are well networked in that space and probably have experienced a lot of friends or people that are in your own personal or professional network, that have had big paydays, but then they blow it all, right? So what types of, what types of advice, are you giving others in the professional sports arena, as it relates to, not blowing, these big paydays, but rather choosing instead to live maybe a more frugal or balanced lifestyle, while also, investing some of that, windfall, into things that pay, consistent income, while they're not able to maybe play in their professional sport any longer.
Oh yeah. So I think Jeremy, you stop into something. I'm going to burn the mic right now to the death. So and the story. I don't know where to start. I got so many stories. I don't know. Let's start from this. So we opened the podcast, which called Pro Investing, right? And there's two sides. One is a pro, could be anybody, right? So the professionals who actually invest in, right? They were able to go through the mentality of not blowing the money, right? And not living for everybody, right? And shiny things, but really going into what's going to be next for my future. So Speaking of that, yesterday I came from Arizona, so I know you know that, or a couple of days ago. I don't know, it was yesterday. I'm just losing my mind. Anyway, so Matt Lindstrom was on my podcast, right? MLB, former MLB guy. So he said one thing. He said, somebody told me you're going to be ex-professional a lot longer than you, the current athlete, performing athlete. So you're going to be, I'm going to say that one more time. That's a super powerful thing to say. So you're going to be ex-professional player a lot longer in your life than you just performing athlete. So with that being said, it's not I wouldn't give him advice, but I'm going to give him experience share, right? So let's say my family experience, right? So the second my brother-in-law made it to NBA, the mentality was it never stops. And guess what? It stopped immediately. Like the next day, it's gone, right? If you would put that check, like you said, that inflated big amount of money, it's like a Powerball ticket, basically. You're winning the Powerball ticket, right? And what happens to the people, look at the statistics, what happens to the people who wins the Powerball? It just, a lot of times, yeah, it's a drastic life event change. Like it's a divorce, right? There's why? Because it's a lot of energy, like a lot of energy coming your way. And the best way, right, to do like really settle down, find the people who is going to tell you where not to invest. Like I'm telling you right now. So that was the experience of other guys, not even mine. Find the people who is going to educate you on a topic. Like you don't go there, you don't go here, you don't go here, you don't do this, don't do that. Don't go to the people who say, go do this, go do this. No, just find those guys who say, you don't do this. So you better off if you're not doing like nothing, like zero, anything. That's one thing. The second thing, and it's huge, right? So being able to say no to your relatives who's coming like every single day. I'm talking about relatives who you never knew before. Like they just pop up from Nebraska, right? I got you like a second cousin and I need to buy a car or something like that. So that's a huge topic, right? And then lastly, again, it's like, do you need 5 Lambos, 25 houses, like a 10,000 square feet house at the, I don't know, Beverly Hills? I mean, this is a very questionable question, very questionable question. And then if you're going to learn what's a liabilities, that's a simple thing, right? You buying yourself a lot of liabilities with no real income. So you got one time check, 2 times. If you're in the league for five, again, let's talk about statistics. NFL guys, right? Now hear me out. Look at my mouth. 78% of people broke. 778. So it's only 2 people who's going to be able to leave off their money after they stop playing. Only 2 out of 10. That's insane. Okay, they don't make a lot. It's 2.9 million on average. But another huge thing, right? That's the actually lowest paying league for you guys to know. The other like huge thing, it's only takes them 2 years to go broke. 2 years, 12 months, another 12 months, they gone. That's it. No more money, no more fame, no more history. Nobody, no one in the world wants to talk to you after that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Igor, and it makes total sense to me. I mean, whether you're, grinding out a W-2 year over year, you're a commission sales guy, you're a small business owner, you're a professional athlete, right? Eventually, that music is going to stop, right? And when you're on the professional athlete, trajectory or path, really the concern is physically how long are you going to be able to last, right? And you may have reached your peak of performance, perhaps maybe too early in your professional career. So at some point that music is going to stop. And I so appreciate you highlighting, the importance of investing in assets versus investing in liabilities. And it would be a lot easier for that professional sports athlete, in my opinion, to invest in an asset that pays monthly or quarterly distributions. And then let's use that income that the asset is producing to pay for that Lamborghini, right? So there are different ways that people can get creative and really structure it, so that they're not building up that column of liabilities, but instead they're using their asset column to pay for, their future liabilities. So appreciate that.
I'm Zach Haptonstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investors. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, and go to our website and set up a call with our team.
I would like to next, if you're okay with that, pivot over to talk a little bit more about Avista Fund. So can you share more about the mission of Avista Fund and what motivated you to focus on multifamily investments specifically?
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Great question. So I think the number one, it's a scalability. What just my personal journey, right? Because again, having the one unit, it's fun, right? Two, I mean, pretty cool, right? So you can brag to people saying, I got a couple units, right? That's a passive, you call it a passive. We've been sold a lot on passive income, right? So now you got five. Okay, and now it's a part-time job. 10, it's a full-time job, right? And then after 10, you're like, okay, should I do that? Can I 10x 10? So it's going to be 100 units, and what's going to look like, right? So that one thing struck me like it was 2020, right? And then when I start to sell the things and then rolling into the syndication, I mean, of course, my first idea, and then a lot of people saying, I want to own the thing, right? That's the majority of the people. What do you want to do? Oh, if I'm not owning this, I'm not doing this. Great, right? Do you own that, right? You own all the operations, remember, right? And by the end of the day, count the hours spent, time spent, emotion, energy, and you're probably making $10 per hour, if so. So that's a huge thing, right? If you count in, if you put in this all in an account, if you don't, that's fine. All that's all fun. It's very profitable. But if you do, right, it's a full-time job, right? So with that being said, the syndication model, and that's a powerful words of, I don't know who was it, but it was saying, I would rather own 1% of somebody else's effort than 100% of my own, right? I think it's a Rockefeller or somebody. So that's exactly what it gives you. The one thing that's a true passive investment, like it's a truly passive. What does that mean? So you're getting reports. You're not getting tenants and phone calls in the toilets. You're getting reports, right? That's a big difference between looking at the numbers or looking at how to fix the toilet. So that's one. The second thing was you can scale it to $1 trillion. How much you can do? Like, do you want to do trillion, two? I don't know. That's a large game. Like you can be like present as like a $50,000, or you can go into like a 20 million right at one time. And it's all up to you. The flexibility of that thing, just insane, right? What you can do with that. Do you want to be partner? Do it. Do you want to be operator? Do it. Do you want to be financing guy? Do it. So there's so many outlets you can find in that thing. So for me, it was, oh, I want to play big game. Like I'm tired of like buying single unit, remodeling like 4 units. That's a beautiful, profitable game. That was not mine for sure. So, and like once I found out, so we start to go into the syndication and really understand one thing. So, what's the management risk? Who's the manager, right? Because by the end of the day, right, it's a teamwork. That's another huge piece for me because I love to be in a teamwork, right? I don't want to be solo person. So the teamwork means, so we want to look at the management team. So as a fund, we went down and like really invested in different companies to understand who is performing the best, who is the best partner, right? Could be a really, really good deal, bad partner is gone, right? It's not working. So the second piece was location, right? If everybody's buying in Florida, do you want to buy in Florida? That's a question. That's a question mark, right? And then if you're in the syndication, let's say you're in the fund, so you can pick and choose, so you can pivot really quick, right? You can pivot that thing. If you stuck with one, for example, syndicator, right, who's focused on one single market, and again, that's my personal experience. I was like, that might be a little bit too much of the exposure in one thing. So, and the other things, it's asset class. There's a storage you can do. I mean, you can buy anything with a syndication model, like obviously. So you can buy oil wealth and gas. I mean, you can buy storage facility. You can buy a multifamily complex. You can buy land. So in my opinion, I want to be present in at least 2 to 3 different asset classes, because if something is not performing, so nobody wants to put your money into that thing. So, right. So we go on pivot over, right? We found a good partner, and that, for example, was a land entitlement deal for us when the multifamily was not performing at the top of the market, right? And it worked really, really well. I'm going to stop.
No, Igor, I really appreciate you kind of breaking down, syndication, the benefits of, active versus, passive investing, and, why it's incredibly important to find opportunities that are risk adjusted with the best in class, sponsors that exist out there. And, kind of why you made the decision to kind of focus on, the multifamily asset class. I also know that your fund, Avista Fund, seeks to positively impact residents and communities. Can you maybe elaborate for the listening audience a little bit more on how you achieve that goal?
Oh, yes. I don't know what magic happens, but when I see underperforming building, so it's quaking and the windows is barely closing, right? It's a little bit dark, right? And then all of a sudden, the good, legit operator comes in. He'll look at the project and say, you know what? Give me 6 months. And we transform that community. Like, it's, for me, it's like a dark house. It's like you got the movie, right, which is horror movie, and there's a dark house. And then the operator comes in, and all of a sudden, everybody's smiling. All of a sudden, the property management is gone, the one which is not doing the good work. So all of a sudden, all its payments. Sorry, I'm just getting excited. It's all painted, right? It's beautiful, and you got all the landscape. And look at the faces of the people when you finish that project. And what I do, number one thing, what I do when I just connect to operator, I go down to their building and I talk to the people who live there, who just live there for the last 2-3 months or whatever, 6 months. So the change of the community is just insane. It's just insane. But now the other thing is, try to walk with a current property manager on site and see how the tenant reacting to that property management. You're going to learn so much more than just to open the balance sheet of that company.
Yeah, that's Igor, that's so powerful. And not every investor has that opportunity to walk a property, to speak to the on-site property manager, to speak to the actual tenants themselves. But if there's an opportunity for you to do so, I highly recommend that at a minimum, okay, your primary contact within that sponsorship or syndication team at least has somebody, that's regularly doing that, because it's incredibly powerful, right? At the end of the day, the most important person in a syndication is not the investor, it's not the sponsor, it's the people that are paying their monthly lease, okay? The residents that actually live in that community, from an occupancy perspective, but also from an improving their, living conditions perspective. And then are they capable, right? If it's a value add multifamily investment opportunity, once you improve the conditions of the community or the apartment that they live in, are they capable of paying the increased rent, right? And so those things are all incredibly important. I appreciate you breaking that down for the listening audience. I would like to talk a little bit more about kind of this topic of risk mitigation and prudent investing. What are kind of the core principles that you adhere to safeguard investors' wealth and ensure prudent investments?
That's a great question. I think the one thing was for sure, it's like we go with our own capital into investment, right? And I'm gonna talk about the track record, right? Not about the future things. So we did lost the money. So we did actually lose the money. I mean, was it a good experience? Terrible, right? So did we learn a lot? Yes, we did. So what's the ask? So we're not going to do it again. So and again, leveraging this, it's huge. Meaning, so like we did multiple ground up developments, never worked out well, never worked out well, right? So and then we went to the other side. So for example, like we did the land deal, right? Doing really really well. Do we have cash flow? Zero, right? There's no cash flow coming in. So is it going to be a good deal? Yes, it will. It's a certain profile of investors who wants to bang on like appreciation on the backside. So, but I think what was working really, really well, and that's what the Rice 48 doing as well. It's just a very boring value add projects, right? With a minimum construction risk, with a minimum financing risk, with minimum this and I mean, very, very boring, like, I don't know, like 80s, 90s vintage, right? Maybe early 2000s. You come in, you just turn like 50% of the units. You're not doing, you know, luxury finishes all over. It's very, very simple model. It's a very achievable model. And number one thing, changing the community from inside. Why? Because you bring in that property management company who actually cares. They do care, right? Because by the end of the day, the customer will be voting with their money every single month. And if you're not doing a good job, right, on your management, there's nothing is going to work. You cannot renovate out of your like disaster, I would say, right? So the only way to do it is just you managing that property every single day, every single month, every single year, right? And people are happy by paying you rent.
Yeah, so appreciate that. And you're so right. I mean, at the end of the day, people do vote with their checkbooks, right?
That's it. I mean, if they're not voting at the end of the month, you are gone from the business planet, though.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. So appreciate that. My next I get a couple more questions for you. My next question is really, related to that, new investor, that aspiring investor. What advice would you give to somebody that's interested in real estate investing, but doesn't really know where to get started to learn more?
Again, when you say an advice, it just makes me anxiety. So I would give them experience share, right? One, I'll probably choose multiple different directions, right? I wouldn't go all in one thing. Like, that was my thing. If I would go all in one project, I'm done, because we lost the money, I think, on the first maybe 2 or 3 or so. Anyways, there's somewhere in the beginning. So because I didn't know what to do, I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I don't know what I don't know. So that's one thing. Diversification, that's huge. I'm talking about the management diversification, because, everybody's so good when you're starting the journey, but then it's different at the end, right? So that's one. The second one is maybe pick and choose different presence, like location. Yeah, could be better here, because again, if everybody's talking about Florida and everybody's like buying in Florida, the question, like correlation with stock market investment, do you want to be buying this and everybody buying? I don't know. That's a question to you, right? That's might be questionable in general. So I think those are the two things to start with. Really good, like diversify with the different things. That's one. And the second one, location, asset class, take a look at those as well. I guess that's my personal experience.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me as well. And I would encourage investors to be prudent in that same way as well. Obviously there's a lot of different places that newbie investors can go to learn more information, whether that's, listening to podcasts, reading good books that are out there, seeking mentors that are, in the space before, that have a track record, of some challenges, some headwinds, and some successes. So really appreciate you breaking that down for us. Igor, what would be maybe 1 or 2 different ways that our listening audience can connect with you to learn more about what you're up to?
Oh, yeah. So the sports are very dear to my heart. I call it winrealestategame.com. That's a URL. You can guys go down there and download the book. Winrealestategame.com. Again, you can go to avistafund.com and visit us. And lastly, just shoot me email, igor@avistafund.com. I think one more thing is like getting rid of this idea, like all in, all out, all in, all out. That's going to be very beneficial as well. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that advice. And we'll definitely put those links in the show notes for the episode. And Igor, thank you so much for the tremendous value that you've brought our listening audience today.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And listening audience, thank you again for jumping into another episode of The Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.